master. You bind the slave. Every shadow is born from the light. Every day must surrender tonight. The pendulum swings from the left to the right. Hold the center, balance the flame. Nothing returns to the way that it came. Stand in the fire and carry the weight. Hold the center, balance the flame. The blade will divide the flesh and the soul. Only the center can make you whole. Do not worship the earth or the sky. Find the truth where the opposites lie. You run from the healing, you run to the hurt. You reach for the heavens and fall in the dirt. No single force can stand on its own. The flesh and the spirit, the blood and the bone. The highest peak and the deepest unknown. Hold the center, balance the flame. Nothing returns to the way that it came. Stand in the fire and carry the weight. Hold the center, balance the flame. I am Baphomet, keeper of the balance, member of the pulse.
Hello, and welcome once again to the Dr. Zeero Xiron Free Magic Secret Show, where we investigate all forms of magic. I mean, you know the drill. I wrote a cool book called Apex Unhinged. If you just Google it, you'll find it. If you want to hear all the cool music I've been making, just go through this channel. I've been using artificial intelligence, which everybody hates, to make a big old stink with my music. So you can find it all here. Hit the playlist tab. There's all this awesome stuff. Do that annoying usual thing that I'm going to tell you. Hit the subscribe button. Let people know I exist. Yada, 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 etc. ad infinitum. And let's talk about something that's going to royal some feathers, because we want your feathers to be royal. Like Melik Daus, right? We got to talk about Baphomet. Well, actually, they call him Baphomet in the parlance, but it was a French thing. It was originally called Baphomet. And I did a video not too long ago talking about the origins of this and what it really means. Now, I want to talk for a second about the subject, but I did add on the earlier video after this introduction because it really didn't get any views. It was just kind of got lost in the shuffle, so I figure I might as well just re-unveil it. Anyway, you know, it's kind of troubling here, this Baphomet character, because everywhere you see this symbol, it's half understood, if it's understood at all, and it's deeply half understood, not totally misunderstood. And there's a lot of people who have this idea that somehow Baphomet is like some sort of actual entity, like was ever meant in that sort of purpose. And I'm here to tell you, unfortunately, I mean, if you sit down, it's going to be a big one for you. You might want to, you know, sit on the toilet because you might poop your pants if you've been so deep into Baphomet this whole time. And then I'm going to surprise you here. But Baphomet there, it's YAHWEH, bro. Or at least the Catholic version of YAHWEH. That's what it's supposed to be. Because it represents the rear side of God. And it was created by a Catholic clergyman who was a Catholic fanatic. That's who Eliphas Levi was. And I'll talk about it more in the video, but you see, Baphomet started as a hushed whisper back in the old days when the Knights Templar were around. And if I'm correct, what is that, the 1500s, 1400s, 1500s, 1300s? I can't remember. But somewhere in that ballpark of a few hundred years, you know. And I talk more about the story. And there really was no Baphomet in the old sense. It was just a propaganda device to shut down a competing army. And then later on, this guy named Eliphas Levi wrote a book called Transcendental Magick and pulled it out of his ass. And he drew the diagram that is now reproduced over and over and over, and it has become this famous occult symbol that no one even understands what it is. And the problem with this is that it's crouched in mysterious terms in Transcendental Magick. And if you're really like not aware of the worldview of the writer that is essentially creating it and what they're all about and what their mindset is and what their ideas are, you're going to be lost because it's crouched in mysterious terms. And it's crouched in terms that are so vague that it can mean an awful lot of things to an awful lot of people and not be accurately seen. Compounding this problem, the most famous version of Transcendental Magick was translated by A.E. Waite. And A.E. Waite translated this book as if like an angry goth metal teenager, where, you know, you can render a word into the English language, and you have like 20 options of what a word could possibly mean, and every single time he picks the word that is, you know, darkest sounding, more hardcore sounding, you know, everything is blackened, everything is dark, everything is this, everything is thunderous, everything is this, you know, it's all like this really epic sort of language. But then you get the translation that Greer did, I think it came out like maybe 2019 or something, where it's as close to the meaning of the true French that was intended in the first place, and it's a much softer read, okay? So now what I'm talking about here is you could say that's the bedrock foundation, this vague understanding, right? See, the thing is, Eliphas Levi wrote another book further on. It was called The Book of Splendors, where he has a whole chapter devoted to Baphomet, or Baphomet, however you want to say it, where he really, really like blatantly declares that it represents the rear side of God and that God is what is worshipped through this statue. And that's what we got to talk about here, guys, because the Baphomet statue has been appropriated by the sort of Satanist fringe and has been misappropriated in tons of media forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. But Baphomet, or Baphomet, as it's known today, or kind of slightly semi-known, again, comes to us from a book from 1854. So you're talking about, 170 years, give or take, around there. So 170 years this thing has been floating around, penetrating subconsciousness, because symbols bypass logic. And what people see, if they don't know any better, they just see that and think, oh, Satan, the Christian devil, or whatever. But that's not what it's about. It's about the great magical agent. And what is the great magical agent? Eliphas Levi calls it the astral light. And he encodes transcendental magic with a bunch of vague statements. But again, you read his other works, and it illuminates what he was talking about. And, in short, before I replay the older segment, which gets into that, and I read the actual book, the actual evidence, the actual fucking real thing, which you're going to hear, understand that, like, Baphomet represents, he's not an entity, he represents the great magical agent. And the great magical agent is a confluence of many different things. But above all, Eliphas Levi is constantly referencing the astral light. And what he's talking about is a sort of cosmic electricity that animates the universe. And when he talks about the astral light, he's also talking about the intersection of astrology, whereas, every single light source that hits us from all the different stars, which are, of course, suns, we have all these suns directed at our planet to different, levels. The planets bouncing the, light off, and all of these light sources affect us like a puppet master pulling at our strings at our deepest internal levels. Now, astrology as a whole is kind of like a pseudoscience that is guesswork because the ancients noticed over and over and over cyclical things that were happening when certain planets appeared very, very close and appeared in conjunction with certain things. They noticed it and they took note of it. And constant observation of these principles has given us a rough outline of astrology that we cling to today. But again, it's seen as a pseudoscience because, we don't have a way to perfectly measure it. But there is an occult science there, and one day it's going to be figured out. Rest assured, eventually it will be figured out. Because you can't tell me that doesn't exist if you know how the sun and the moon affect us. Do you just feel the way you do in the middle of the day with the sun blaring on you, and then how different you feel at night? Because we're attuning ourselves to these two celestial bodies more so than anything else. But just because something is a speck in the sky doesn't mean that it isn't pulling some string. So Baphomet is all about that, and about the properties of magnetism, and about the cosmic electricity that surrounds us all at any given time. So in a sense, yeah, you could take, the pentagram that's on his head and turn it upside down and say it stands for the dark magical agent, this and this and this. But in the end, the worldview that created it, the idea that this guy has of, the devil or true evil or whatever you're like really thinking when you're thinking this infernal empire shit, you have to come from his worldview of what that means. And his is that, God is like this creator beyond the universe and created the universe, and the devil would therefore be a design of the universe. It would not be infecting the source. The source creates the creation, and the devil is part of the creation. That's how this guy sees it. That's not how I necessarily see it. I like this idea of panentheistic Satanism. See, this is what I want to hear more. I was, reading about that somewhere. Someone had that great way to put it. But again, yeah, Doc is panentheistic, but I see it all as one big thing. So whatever these people think of the devil, I just see it spliced together as one big thing. So, see, this is the bridge of communication and the olive branch that you can, extend to the right kind of Satanist here and there. But yeah, so I'm going to dive right into it. This is an earlier recording, and I am clearly reading the book by Eliphas Levi, which is called Book of Splendors, and you're going to learn all about it right now. So the thing that I wanted to talk about is I've seen a great number of videos people have posted, books people have put out about what they call Baphomet, but it's not Baphomet, it's Baphomet, it's French. So there's some extreme misinformation going on out there, guys, and it's one of the things that like annoys me the most about magic. When I talk about very specific things annoying me that people don't understand, I can think of some key things. You know, number one is like when you say the word witchcraft, people automatically think you're like making potions and spells in jars and riding around on a broomstick and sending lightning from your fingertips under the full moon, and you have a black cat and like all this cheesy shit, and you wear a fucking pointy hat or whatever, and you probably hang out at New Age stores and smell like patchouli a lot and all that shit when people just, you know, whatever. And then you talk about magic more, and then people bring up Aleister Crowley. And that guy was so full of shit. He's just a ham. And he's totally disreputable and just fucking stole a bunch of shit that wasn't his to interject a bunch of his shit into it in order to make his own little apex, you know. He's full of shit. He's full of shit. And when you bring magic up to people, he pops in the mind, and people reference him, and they have no idea what this guy was about to begin with. Another extremely annoying facet in magic is all the trail that Anton LaVey left behind him, cooking a bunch of stuff up and passing it off as something, being a rabble rouser, and then we're all stuck with it afterwards because he wanted to use the word Satan. So there's all these things that are extremely, extremely annoying, and one of the most annoying things of all time is this confusion with Baphomet and what that is and what's going on. So let me just make this as clear as possible. Baphomet is not the devil. It is not Satan as a goat on a throne. It's not the goat of Mendes. That's not what that is. It's a symbol. It's a symbol that stands for the great magical agent. And what is the great magical agent? The guy who created this image, his name is Eliphas Levi. And this image was produced in his book, Doctrine and Ritual of High Magic, in France in 1854. And this drawing starts with him. And now that drawing is in that book, and he talks about it in a vague sense without being so direct. And he hops around it. But he has another book that's very lesser known. It's called the Book of Splendors. And there's a chapter called Baphomet. And he very clearly explains what this thing is. So on the Ark of the Covenant, they supposedly drew angels and cherubs as like half human, half animal sphinxes. That's what he is. He's a holdover from the mythology of the Ark of the Covenant. And he's a Jewish sphinx. Okay, he's a sphinx. Right? And he's like the guardian of the threshold of many things. And now the Book of Splendor, the chapter, it's like all Levi's writings. He'll start really strong on something and then veer off and then rant about stuff. So there's like a chapter called Baphomet, but he only talks about it like a little bit and then trails off with a bunch of other explanations. So I don't have a computer in front of me, but I did write down some key things that he says so there will be absolutely no confusion about this, because there's so many people who think Baphomet is the devil or Baphomet is an entity or a god or something, and he's not at all. He's a symbol. He's a fucking initiatic symbol. And here's what Levi said, the guy who created it. Okay, 1 second. La di da deedle dee deedle dum. Whee! So, Baphomet is knowledge rising in opposition to idolatry, protesting through the very monstrosity of the idol. It's like an anti-idol that shits upon the whatever. And you have to understand that Levi was a hardcore Catholic, and he believed in like all this old school monotheistic God, and that's what's real to him. So he talks about how the Baphomet symbol is the hind side of God, and God is what is worshipped through it, not some other entity. It's part of the YAHWEH cult. It's the hind side of Yahweh, and he drew it. He made it up. So between his horns, he carries the torch of life, and the living soul of this torch is God. Okay, that's another thing. So he's a cherub sphinx of the Ark of the Covenant. Baphomet is not worshipped. It is God who is worshipped. Baphomet is not a god. He is the sign of initiation. He is also the hieroglyphic figure of the Tetragrammaton. So literally, when you study hieroglyphs, you realize that the ancient Egyptians started speaking in emoji. So Baphomet is a fucking emoji for Yahweh, okay? He's a fucking emoji. All right? Now, he's also the guardian of the key to the temple. And as I said, he represents the hind side of God. So these people with their books and shit and all their videos, like, what are you talking about? Where are you getting your information? Clearly not from the guy who fucking invented the goddamn thing. So we have to also talk about very briefly, because there's the history of that name existing prior to this in the 1800s. This was back when the Knights Templar were around. And I forget which king it was. I think it was the King of France. He wanted to get rid of them after the Crusades and shit because they had too much power. So he concocted this bullshit charge that they were secretly worshiping this idol called Baphomet. And then they started torturing people and killing people to get confessions and the whole fucking bit. And they used it as an excuse to slaughter the Knights Templar. It was a fucking propaganda device used against Knights Templar through Spanish Inquisition-styled methods of torture and confession. So that's where the name is really, really coming from. So that's the entirety of just pretty much what I wanted to say. I don't know how much clearer it could ever be. But you guys, you're ridiculous. So yeah, that's all. That's it. Thanks for stopping by the Dr. Zeero Xiron Free Magic Secret Show. I hope that makes your life better. I hope it makes your day better. So, skibbledy bibbledy bop.
Live action show in stereo, on TV, radio. Smoking dust like there's just no tomorrow. But they don't know. Said they don't know. Yeah, well, they don't know. Ah, they don't know. Yeah, I'm unrepentant and I don't regret it. There isn't any other way. Yeah, I'm unrepentant. The sun that never sets, emitting ultraviolet rays. It's time for blood and glory to testify in night the evil that men do. Yeah, I'm unrepentant and I don't regret it. There isn't any other way. Yeah, I'm unrepentant and I'm glad I said there isn't anything to say. Yeah, well, I am just a poor boy, my story's seldom told, except by me. Now shut your mouth if I might be so bold. They laid me in a manger, they fed me wine and bread. I killed the Nazarene and he lies bleeding, broken dead. Yeah, I'm unrepentant. Yeah, I'm unrepentant. Yeah, I'm unrepentant. Yeah, I'm unrepentant. What's up? I'm unrepentant. Victory is ours. I'm unrepentant. Yeah, I'm unrepentant.